Head teachers need to arrange a reintegration interview with parents when a student is excluded for a period of 5 or more days. In this film, we've gathered together an expert panel of former head teachers to pass on their top interview tips for handling a reintegration interview. First, let's meet the team. Alan Key, now retired, has 36 years' experience in education, with 15 as a head teacher. Peter Lawrence is Development Director at a trust of 8 schools. He has over 30 years' experience in education, 13 of them as a head teacher. Colin Richardson, also retired, has a total of 41 years' experience in education, with 16 spent as a head. Our panel has had an email from new head Victoria about a pupil called Stephen.
Following a series of serious behavioural incidents, I had to exclude one of my Year 10s for 5 days. I'm aware he has a history of getting into trouble at school, and staff have previously struggled to engage with the parents. I asked for the parents to come into school for a reintegration interview. How should I make the most of this opportunity to sit down face to face with the parents?
Having done this a number of times, the first thing which you must do when you get the parents in is to separate the parent from the child and simply sit down with them and really reassure them. What you want to do really is to build a relationship with them to help support Stephen through his learning. It's vital you get the parents on board with you as an institution to work together to support Stephen.
Notice in the email it mentions that they've had difficulties in the past being able to engage with the parents. So the fact that the parents are actually coming in response to the exclusion is in itself a positive thing. And I think it would be a good idea to start off in that way with the parents, to thank them for coming in, appreciating that it is a difficult situation, an unpleasant matter to have to discuss.
The panel's first piece of advice is to start positively by reassuring the parents and getting them on side.
I would certainly want with me the relevant person who's been dealing with this young man, the head of year, or however the school is structured, because inevitably when you're dealing with something like this, the discussion will come back to nuances of detail about what has happened or hasn't happened, or what the parents think has happened, and it's really essential to have the right people there who know the precise details of everything that's gone on.
I think that's important. I think in my experience, having a behaviour log where it's all written down on the table helps not to go over all ground, to say, look, this is on the table here. You agree that's the behaviour that the child's displaying and move on from there. But if you haven't got that evidence based on the table, some of these interviews can go pear-shaped because you start challenging things and you have no evidence there, evidence base to go on.
The panel's second tip is to have the evidence on hand and a staff member who knows the child to support you.
You can emphasise the meeting being about working together to try and improve things, then I think you've got a chance.
For me, the secret to success is that the parents and the school have agreed a common front before the child comes in, before the young person comes in. And that's not to say they can't contribute to the solution.
The worst thing you can have is Stephen coming back into the room and there's still this gulf between the parents and the school. What you have to do really is to get a commonality of approach, so when Stephen comes in, he's the centre of the attention, and the parents and the school are saying to him, this is what we expect you to do. We're going to set you these targets, and that's the important thing.
The panel's third tip is to work with the parents to set targets before the student is brought into the interview.
Some people don't like. I like contracts. I like, you sit down and it's there. Stephen's quite aware of what's expected of him, his future conduct. 3 or 4 key things which you pick out which would help him move around school, be in lessons more effectively. And that written down is something which you can use. But there has to be a consequence if he breaks the contract. And that means punishment, unfortunately, which could be whatever you want to decide. But he's been suspended from school for 5 days now.
Which is actually quite a big stride along the disciplinary road, really, and which leads to a not very pleasant conclusion. I think the parents and the student need to know that.
The panel's final tip is to set clear expectations for the student's behaviour and outline the consequences for breaking these boundaries.
Be positive, inform the parents about positive things he's done within the school. We all do negative things, but we all do positive things as well. Show them the way forward, but certainly be very strong about what Stephen has to do, the expectations you expect him to meet, but he's reintegrated back into school.